All right. Well, welcome everybody to Third Thursday. I'm pleased to welcome back Maria Reidelbach to Third Thursday. Maria last spoke to us in September of last year, focusing on fall foraging. You can find that talk on our YouTube channel. Just search for Third Thursday Environmental Series, which is a mouthful, or send an email to Third Thursday Series at gmail.com. This time, Maria is preparing us for springtime foraging. Maria is an accomplished chef, artist, author, and since an early age, forager. She's a former president of the New York Mycological Society, cooking instructor for the Cornell Cooperative Extension, and holds a certificate in plant-based nutrition from Cornell University. And on a personal note, some of us went foraging with Maria this past Sunday. Given the still chilly weather, I expected nothing, but we were pleasantly surprised that Maria found several tasty plants already available. Try to replicate that with an artificial intelligence program. Thus, I'm delighted to turn the screen over to Maria to tell us about tasty spring foraging treats. Maria.
Thank you, Alan. Hi, everybody. So yeah, we're going to talk about foraging. Let's see, I'm going to share my screen right there. Okay, and we'll go to the next slide. Okay, yes, got that. Participants can see. There we go. So what is foraging? It's fun, it's adventure, it's connection to tradition, food, and health. And we'll talk about all these things in a minute. But I just want to find out, are there any foragers in the group here with us? Anybody who has foraged or regularly forages? It sounds like John said that he likes to fish for trout, which is foraging.
You could say that. Oh yeah, I do eat knotweed here and there.
Excellent, excellent. Well, seafood and fish are one of the very last foraged foods that many of us eat because they're sold in markets. But there's like tons of really wonderful food available out there to forage if you know what you're looking for. I learned how to forage when I was little with my mother. She grew up on a farm in Appalachia and during the Depression. And they actually, that was one of the ways that they got food to eat. But when she taught me how to forage when I was young, what she really focused on was how much fun it was and how delicious it is, and what a kind of a miracle it is that the earth just provides us with delicious food. And all that we need to acquire it is knowledge and our senses. The connection to tradition is really interesting because, of course, for eons, our ancestors, that's the way we ate, is that we foraged until agriculture was invented. It was how we sustained ourselves. And studying the history of eating and the history of food and the history of nutrition, one of the things that I've learned is that we are attracted to the flavors and the colors and the aromas of things because it signifies nutrition to us. I just read a book about flavor. It's called Flavorama, and it's great. It's by a food scientist who was on the staff of Noma, this famous experimental restaurant in Copenhagen. And she talks about how for flavor, we've got 5 sensors, different kinds of sensors on our tongue. We've got sensors for bitter, for sweet, for sour, for salty, and for umami, which is meatiness. And those are considered the 5 flavors. And the other component of the 5 tastes, but the other component of flavors is aroma. And flavor is very simple. There are 5 receptors and 5 different kinds of flavor molecules, basically. But for aroma, there are thousands of different kinds of molecules. And the aroma sensors are up in our upper nose. And there are these long nerves that go directly into our brain, unlike so many of our other senses. And there are hundreds of different kinds of aroma receptors. And with all those different aromas, all those different molecules that carry aromas, and all the different sensors that we've got on our cells, it is millions of combinations. And it really is a superpower that we have that just really goes unrecognized because we take it so for granted. But what it really is great for is for identifying nutritious foods. And so when you forage, you're going to be using all your senses to help identify food. And one of the things I love about nutritious foods is that we are hardwired to find those delicious. They're going to taste delicious to us because we need that motivation, you know, just like sex feels good to us because it's good, you know, it propagates our species. Food feels good to us because it keeps us healthy. You know, and it's good for us in so many ways to be out there because it's so much what we evolved to do. And I think personally that in the present day, those urges, those foraging urges, are often supplanted by shopping, by consumerist urges. You know, I think that Madison Avenue knows about this stuff and they know how to redirect it toward, you know, shopping and consuming, you know, all kinds of things. But it's interesting to think about where it came from originally. Let's move on here. How to begin foraging. So, of course, it's all based in the season, you know, what grows when. And this is going to be a talk on seasonal foraging in the spring and early summer. Now, there's so many different things that you can forage. And there are things that are easy to identify and things that are difficult to identify. There are things that are common. There are things that are uncommon. I am going to suggest that we focus on the common things that are easy to identify because there's just so much of it. I mean, and if you find that you really are enjoying foraging and you want to nerd out on it, you know, there's plenty more that you can do to deepen your knowledge and your experience. But I mean, I've been foraging for years and I have taken a deep dive with mushrooms, but as far as, you know, foraging plants, I'm still kind of on the surface. And I have found it to be super fulfilling. So first place to look is around your yard. There's plenty growing in your yard, unless you have one of those super manicured yards. There's plenty growing in your yard that is delicious to eat. So gear and garb. These days, of course, you want to protect yourself from ticks. I walked out my back door the other day and took 10 steps and found a tick on my hand. So they're really just waiting for us out there. So you want to be careful about that. I tend to pull on boots always and over my pant legs. It seems to be the easiest, quickest way to deal with that. Picardin is a bug spray that's not too bad for you and that definitely deters ticks and mosquitoes. You'll want to take a basket for your goodies, maybe containers. Some people like to bring egg cartons for little specimens to separate them. I like to take a big canvas shopping bag, like a tote bag. And what I do is I put a basket in the bottom of it, you know, that's about the size of those U-Pick baskets that hold, I think they hold 2 quarts or a gallon probably. And that squares off the bottom of the canvas basket. And then it's also got the shoulder straps that you can put over your shoulder, but it's not crushing everything you have in it because you've like got this open box at the bottom. You'll want to take, depending on what you're foraging, you're going to want to take a knife, trowel, clippers. It's good to take a first aid kit. I kind of neglected that until I was trying to hack some chaga, which is a very woody mushroom, off a tree, and my knife slipped and I stabbed my finger, and I didn't have any Band-Aids. So I had to take the rest of my walk with my finger in my mouth. So a good idea to at least take some Band-Aids or a bandana or something like that you can, use. And a whistle is very helpful just in case you get into trouble. You probably want your cell phone for photos, and in case, something awful happens. It doesn't usually, of course. And I don't know, you guys all live up here, so I'm sure you're familiar with walking trails and kind of know all of this. Foraging with friends is really fun because you can kind of, look on both sides of the path of the trail. If you're on a trail, you can kind of split up in the woods. Some of this stuff is hard to see, so you want to, kind of cover territory. Plus, if you're new to foraging and you want help with identification, it's always good to have somebody else looking with you and helping with that. So what's out there now? Lots of greens. That is what spring is good for. And again, thinking about my mother on the farm where she grew up, one of the first things I learned to forage as a kid were baby dandelion greens. So you see a dandelion over here on the right in the middle. That's a big dandelion. It even has like a little bud. When I was sent out,
Sorry, I don't understand.
when I was sent out, that's my Siri, sorry. I was told to collect just the very tiniest leaves, and they're very bitter, but I would bring them home, and my mother would make this delicious egg and bacon and dandelion green salad, and the bitterness of the dandelion greens was set off by the egg and bacon. And when I thought about it later as an adult, I realized that, these greens were probably the first green thing they'd had to eat since last fall. They grew up on a farm, on a subsistence farm in Appalachia. It was the Depression. They weren't buying food. And so they were living on what they had in their root cellar for the winter. And, greens go fast. And so I'm sure that these greens were like a spring tonic for them. And it's just interesting that so many greens are the first things to come up, and they're what we humans really need in the spring after a winter of, root vegetables and eggs and other kinds of protein that don't have the kinds of nutrition that greens do. So here's a sampling of spring greens, very common and easy to identify. Chickweed, which is right here in the middle bottom. It's a tiny little leaf, very, very tasty. For all of these, I'm just going to give you generalities about identifying them, because I can't really, explain in this time everything you need to know to identify them. But I'm also, at the end of the talk, I'm going to give you some resources, and there's all kinds of online resources as well that you can use when you are out there actually looking at things. So chickweed is on the list. The things that have the green star here are found in Marbletown Meadow. We found them on Saturday. So if you go there, you can be sure to see them. So chickweed is here. It's a really nice salad green. It's got a very mild, nutty taste. Fiddleheads, which are baby ferns, right here up on the top left. And you only want to eat the ostrich ferns. Those are the ones that are really juicy and curled up like this. Right now, they just look like little white bumps because they're covered with like a white fuzz that you can see the remnant of here turning brown. They don't have a lot of flavor, but they're very charming and nice in rice. And, you kind of put them in and just let them get warm. You don't really cook them too much. You will find, if you research these guys, that they have a little bit of a toxin that, you're warned about not eating them, every day for years because of that. And you don't want to eat them every day for years, even though you could pickle them and do that. But I've enjoyed them for many years. I just eat them in the spring. I don't even preserve them. I just look at them as a nice seasonal snack. right here on the top right, you can see a friend of mine in a vast watercress patch. We are so lucky that watercress is abundant here. None of it is actually wild. It's a garden escapee. And it's all the same variety. And it's the same as what you buy in the supermarket. But you can find patches of it, and it just grows in running water. It grows in pretty pure water. And if you clip the top of it, the part that's above the water, you can collect it. It's delicious. You will find, in my experience, tiny little snails. And weirdly, if you have your watercress in a plastic bag for a little while, the snails will migrate to the plastic. And when you dump the watercress out, they'll all be sticking to the sides of the plastic. Anyway, they're really cute. They're not gross. But you do want to wash those greens before you eat them. Wash everything before you eat it. Another great green down here on the bottom right is stinging nettle. And it even looks stingy, don't you think? It's spiky, and you don't want to touch these guys with your bare hands, but they are delicious, and they incredibly have a very kind of a you make a broth from these, or a tea from the fresh leaves, and it's almost like a meat broth. It has that, filling your mouth kind of umami quality. So it's a great thing to add to soup. All of the sting goes out of it, obviously, when you cook it, or even if you mince it finely. The sting is coming from these tiny little hollow hairs that you'll find on the stem and underneath the leaves, and they have, I think, folic acid is the active ingredient, which is what stinging ants have. So it's pretty potent. But I've slipped baggies over my hands when I've been collecting it if I don't have gloves, and it works just fine. And if you do get stung, it doesn't last for very long. It's kind of funny. I think of it as a special effects kind of a plant. And then over here, underneath the list is several kinds of sorrel or dock. Yellow dock, and this is a red vein sorrel, and down here is sheep sorrel, and these are all tart. Sorrels are very tart. I think it probably means they have a bunch of vitamin C, and the docks are pretty bitter, so you're going to need to treat them, in a way that you treat a bitter herb to make it taste not so bitter. But the sheep sorrel and the blood vein sorrel are just really nice and tart and not bitter, and delicious in salads. And then the last one here, I don't think I have it on my list actually, is mugwort. And mugwort is not really very tasty, but it's all over the place. And the Japanese like to, in the spring, they like to make something called mugwort mochi. Mochi is this gummy rice, glutinous rice food that is pretty cool. They coat ice cream with it in Japan, but they also serve it in soups. And in the spring, they make mugwort mochi, which I'm going to do this spring. I'm excited about it. I've never made it before, so wanted to just throw that in. Anybody have any questions about these greens or any others that there's lots of other spring wild greens that do grow, but these are the ones that I think are my favorites and are most common.
I've grown sorrel for a soup called shav, which is sort of like a beet borscht.
Yep.
And that's delicious.
Straub is really good. I've had Straub. It is delicious. Garden sorrel, which I have in my garden, it's a great garden plant. It comes back every year, and it's very early, which is nice, and so tart and delicious. The only drawback is that when you cook it, it turns like olive drab, like blah. So you really want to mix it with spinach or something, or just eat it raw, which is one of the things that I like to do, is chop it up and mix it with an avocado to make like a guacamole. Instead of lemon, using the sorrel as the sour agent. Any other?
Yeah,
Question?
I have a question about ramps. People talk about ramps, but I wouldn't
Yes,
know.
we're going to get to ramps.
Okay.
Indeed. Yeah, so this is greens. Here we come. Here come the ramps. Ramp it up. So herbs and aromatics. So there's lots of really fragrant things out there in the spring, and many of them smell like onions. So we've got the star of the ones that smell like onions are the ramps, and these are ramps in the top right here that have been unearthed and cleaned. They only have 3 leaves each, 3 big broad leaves. And then underneath there's this nice fat white bulb. Some of them have red stems here, and some of them just have pale green stems. And I don't know what the difference is, but just an observation. Ramps are slow growing, and you don't want to take even most of them. If you find a patch of them, you want to just, take a few. I know many people advocate taking 1 leaf, but since they only get 3 leaves, I don't know whether that's really helpful for them. It's 1/3 of their leaves. That seems compromising to me. If there aren't enough of them, just don't take any. But if you find a nice big patch of them, there's no harm in taking, a few dozen home for your dinner. They're very strong and garlicky and delicious, and you can eat the green and you can eat the bulb. Other oniony, garlicky plants in the spring are field garlic, which is over here on the bottom right. We found some of that in Marbletown Meadows. It looks like an onion, and when you pull it up, it has tiny little bulbs underneath. And you can use that in your salads chopped up. And then over here on the far left is garlic mustard, which is an invasive plant. So the more you eat, the better. And it grows this time of year as a basal rosette, which means that it grows close to the ground with a bunch of leaves coming out of a central spot. And if you take a leaf and crush it and smell it, you're going to smell garlic and mustard. And it's pretty easy to identify, and it grows everywhere. And it's nice in a salad. You want to mix it with other things because it is quite a strong flavor. So those are the 3 garlicky, oniony flavors. Here in the middle with the purple flowers is anise hyssop. Mine is coming up already. It is neither anise nor hyssop, but it does smell like both. And it's really delicious. I like to just take a few leaves and crush it and put it in, cold water and to make herb water. You can also dry it and use it for tea. It is in the mint family. And there's mint up here on the top left. There are so many different kinds of mint out there, and they all have a square stem. That's kind of a giveaway of the mint family. If you take a look at this stem on section, you're going to find that it's kind of a hollow square. Same with the anise hyssop here. And mint can be used the same way as anise hyssop. You can infuse it in water or in other liquid. You can infuse it in a sugar syrup. You can infuse it in spirits. And you can dry it and use it for a tea. You could bury it in sugar, and your sugar will be flavored. So there's all kinds of fun things that you can do with it. Lemon balm is coming up this time of year. The mint, catnip is also a mint, and it's not wild, but it can grow wild, and my cats just love it. You're going to find it also has a square stem, and it's got a minty kind of smell, but not quite the same as like a peppermint. It's a little gamier smelling. I don't know how to describe it. And then here in the middle, on the left, there is wild ginger. So you can see that the leaf here is kind of a heart shape, and it looks a little bit like the same shape as the garlic mustard, but as you can see, there are differences. It's a bigger leaf, although I have seen some pretty oversized garlic mustard leaves, and it's got this stem that goes down, And then the roots are very different than garlic mustard roots, and it's the roots where the flavor is. And it's this really interesting gingery flavor, aroma, I should say. And these grow wild everywhere. You can find them along the rail trails. I transplanted some, they like to grow in the shade, and I always transplant them when I move in someplace, and I transplanted some here in my place 5 years ago, and they're just, going great. And they make a nice, pretty ground cover. They have a little red flower that blooms on the surface of the ground and is pollinated by ants. I mean, you gotta love that, right? Nature just comes up with all of these wonderful ways to thrive. Right down here in the corner, not listed, is bee balm, which smells like oregano. And that's another fun plant, aromatic plant. Any questions or comments or suggestions on the aromatics and the herbs?
Where does the wild ginger like to grow?
It likes to grow in the shade. And so I found it in the woods mainly. But it is in people's yards as well. The first time I saw it, it was in somebody's garden. And then I was able to identify it in the woods when I found it. And these little roots, they're like kind of pencil size. And what I've done with them is I've infused them in spirits and then used them to make cocktails.
Sounds good.
Yeah, fun. So the mushrooms, yay. So one of the most exciting times of the year for foragers is May, because everything's coming out, but also that's when the morels grow. And in this part of the country, they are kind of difficult enough to find that, they become a real kind of spring sport to see if you can find enough morels to take home for dinner. So the morels, these in this photograph right here, are blonde morels. And you can see they're pretty white. There are a couple of other kinds of morels that grow around here. And they grow under old apple trees. They grow under tulip poplars. They grow under dying elms, but most of the dying elms are dead now because they were taken out by the elm disease. But they also like limey soil, which you do tend to find in this area, especially, around Rosendale, where the cement mines were, they were mining limestone. They're hard to find. It takes a lot of hunting, and they're not easy to spot because they pretty much look like pine cones laying on the ground. So it's challenging, but it's a fun sport. A more common mushroom that you're likely to find in the spring is this one on the top right. It's called a dryad saddle. Dryad being a forest nymph, and it looks like a saddle for a forest nymph to sit on. And it's an interesting mushroom. It's a polypore, and when you smell it, it smells just like fresh cucumber, like strongly of fresh cucumber. You need to get them really, really small and fresh for them to be edible and tender. But if you get the older ones, they're really great for stock. You can just, toss them in some water like you would a soup bone, and make a mushroom stock by, adding some aromatics and salt and all the things that you would to make a nice stock. Other mushrooms that grow in the spring are oyster mushrooms. And you see two kinds here. Used to be that this white kind is all you saw in these woods, in this area, but golden oysters have taken over in the last few years. They are a farm escapee. They came from a farm in Rhinebeck. We've been able to trace them through DNA sequencing back to this farm. And so they've just been radiating outward from there and from another farm in Ohio. And I guess this year they were declared invasive. I'm not sure what that means, what the definition of that is regarding mushrooms. but they are all over the place and they are delicious. They're easy to identify. Use, you know, good sources for when you find them the first time, until you learn what they, you know, look like. There are no toxic, you know, lookalikes, but there are, you know, with mushrooms, you always want to be super careful because there are deadly mushrooms out there. Another thing you need to look for with oyster mushrooms is you can see on this white one, you can see this little black thing right here. They get these shiny little black bugs. And luckily they contrast with these beautiful, you know, pale gills, and they're shiny, so they aren't gross at all. And you just kind of tap them out and they just easily fall out, and they don't leave any, you know, poop behind or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that. You know, you'll see other mushrooms in the spring, but these are the chief edibles. And, you know, with any luck, you'll be able to, you know, find some of these. Because they are out there. And this spring we have had plenty of precipitation in the late winter, and it seems to be keeping up. So we all have all of us mushroom hunters have our fingers crossed for a good season. Any questions or comments about fungus hunting?
I have
Okey
to
doke.
say, oysters are probably the easiest mushroom to find in the Hudson Valley. It is everywhere, and I'm always surprised that I walk rail trails and there are lovely stands of it where hundreds of people have walked by and ignored it.
I know, right? And then you see them for sale at the co-op for like, you know, $15 a pound. Yeah, no, it's great. I love these golden oysters, and they are abundant and they are delicious. Great grilled, great sautéed, just, you know, really good all different ways and so easy.
Maria, I have a quick sort of general question. It's Casey.
Sure.
So you mentioned not taking too many ramps, which I really appreciate your saying that. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you've talked about that is you know, rare enough that people should be careful about not taking too much or too many.
No, ramps are really the only thing that I would say that about, because you're taking the whole plant,
Mm-hmm.
and they are less common than some of the others.
Okay.
With mushrooms, you know, one thing to know about mushrooms is that they are the fruit of the actual fungus, which is the mycelium that lives underground, this white thready stuff that lives either, you know, underground or in the wood that the mushrooms are growing on. So that is the actual critter, and the mushroom is the fruit.
Okay.
So, you know, it's like taking an apple from a tree. You're not harming the fungus itself.
That's great. Thank you. That's helpful.
Yes, yes, you never have to worry about that with mushrooms. I mean, if you've got professional pickers who are sweeping through a forest, you know, every day and taking every single thing, maybe, but there's gajillion spore out there. Mushrooms are really good at producing spore. So that's the good news.
Okay.
So flowers, spring brings flowers, and there are some really lovely edible flowers out there. One thing I just learned about are magnolia petals, which have a very gingery flavor and which you can infuse in water or syrup or spirits and get flavor from them. Elder flowers, you can do the same. They have a really lovely floral, they have their own fragrance that doesn't smell like anything else but elderflowers. So you can infuse those. I've also heard you can make fritters. You can, you know, dip them in batter and then cook them up, and they're good. I've never done that. Just about anything is good if you do that to it. But anyway, dandelion flowers. My grandmother used to make dandelion wine that was kind of this interesting cordial. They've got a pretty interesting flavor. Violets are very edible and pretty, great addition to a salad. They're related to pansies. And daylily buds can be eaten like green beans. And so you can pick the bud part. You want to make sure that they're daylilies and not garden lilies. And again, you know, more information is available online. Let's see. Yeah, there are other spring flowers that are edible, but these are the most common, and I think interesting and delicious. And the Forager's bookshelf, which I'm gonna pause here and come back to this. But I just wanted to talk for a second about foraging as an essential skill. You know, times are strange, and there's all kinds of shaking up going on in our world. Climate change is upon us, and politics are bizarre. And it seems like there's a whole cadre of people out there who really don't care if the earth survives in its present state or not. And you know, there are ways that we can resist this. And one of the ways that we can resist it powerfully is to really honor and value the biological diversity that is around us. That is something that they don't honor and they don't value. I really think that it's one of the reasons why they're inventing AI and why they're so, you know, what else do we need AI for? Why do we need it all? It takes so much energy. I think they think that they're going to cook their own world up and that they don't need the natural world anymore. So I think that we need to do everything we can to make sure that we are honoring the natural world and that we are valuing the natural world, and all the biodiversity, not just among, you know, plants, but among the fungi and among the people and among animals, because I think that the forces that are trying to take over don't value that. And I don't want to get too political, but I don't know how not to. So just putting that out there. Does anybody have anything that they'd like to share in that regard or discuss?
I think it's also important to point out that we're just beginning to understand the role of a lot of these plants in the forest ecosystem. I mean, there's been a lot of exciting work on the role of fungi in forests, and I suspect we're just at the beginning of trying to understand what's going on.
It's such an exciting time because yes, it's true. There's especially in the kingdom of fungi. It has been a neglected science in the neglected sciences of biology, and you know, they're just finding out there's all this symbiosis, and they used to look at it as parasitism, which is, you know, a particular way of looking at the world again, but it turns out that it's all symbiotic, and that the mushrooms, you know, trees can't live without fungus, and fungus can't live without trees, and you know, they all communicate with each other. It's so exciting. I'm going to come back here to the let's see. Oopsie, it disappeared, y'all. Hold on. Oh my goodness. Yeah, here we go. So this is a bookshelf of some of my favorite books about foraging. First and foremost is Dina Falcone's Foraging and Feasting. Dina is a local herbalist and a wonderful teacher. She gives all kinds of lectures and talks, and this is a fantastic book. All of the plants in this book are grow locally, And not only is this a great book to learn to identify these plants, but also there's a whole fantastic cookbook in here as well. So great book. She self-published it. It's awesome. It's famous all over the United States because it's so good. Yule Gibbons, I rediscovered him. Some of you may remember him back in the day when he was one of the very early foragers back in hippie times in the 1960s. I unearthed his books a few years ago and reread them, and they are fantastic. Stalking the Wild Asparagus, Stalking the Blue-Eyed Scallop, and Stalking the Healthful Herbs. A really good introduction to foraging is Gary Linkhoff's Joy of Foraging, and also Gary's Complete Mushroom Hunter, which is a great introduction to hunting mushrooms. Hold your hand, starts you out in your backyard, and then takes you out further and further into the woods. Gary also wrote the Audubon Field Guide to North American Mushrooms. It's great. They recently came out with a new edition that I hear is not nearly as good. So you're going to want to, if you want a really authoritative guide to lots of mushrooms, go on the used book site and get this one. Another good book that's out of print that you can get on used book sites is Mushrooms and Other Fungi of North America by Roger Phillips. And then I just love Wild Drinks and Cocktails by Emily Hahn. It is a great introduction to drawing flavors out of natural materials and getting to experience them that way. Let's see. I'm gonna stop the share here.
Foraging and Feasting is available at Rough Draft. I saw it out on a table.
Oh, good. Yeah. In case you couldn't see when I was sharing, this is the cover. It's got beautiful botanical illustrations by a Stone Ridge, Ackward artist, Wendy Hollander, botanical artist. It's a fantastic book. Yeah. Questions or contributions, suggestions?
Yeah, I wondered, this is all early spring stuff,
Yes,
not later in the year.
early and late spring. Some of it's a little later, like the elder flowers don't bloom for another month or so.
Is there another whole subject about later in the season?
Well, summer brings its own delights. So yes, it's kind of another category. And then of course in the fall, there's a whole nother batch of
These books that you're talking about would include info about that?
Yes, yeah, they're all multi-seasonal books, yes. Foraging and Feasting actually has like wonderful tables that tell you what's in season when, and what part of it you can eat. It's an amazingly thorough book. She did a fantastic job with this book. Yeah, it's terrific. And she does videos. If you sign up for her videos, she regularly sends out instructional videos and does local lectures. Don't miss it. If you get a chance to hear her speak, she's fantastic.
Okay.
So anybody have any plans to get out there this weekend?
Yes.
Well, I like the things in my front yard. I often eat them. So.
Oh, what are you eating when you're from your front yard? I want to hear.
But you said what they are pretty much. I love the garlic. I always put that into my salads. You know, the wild. You called it something else, but
Garlic mustard.
thank you. And I also do the dandelion greens, and also I like the onions, but I use the stalks. I just cut up the stalks. This little stalks that look like grass, but they're taller. That's just easy,
They are. They're like chives, right?
Yeah. So thank you.
Hey, Maria, are all the fiddleheads edible that you see? If it's a fiddlehead, you can eat it, or are there certain ones that you can't?
Well, fiddleheads particularly come from the ostrich fern. So it's one particular species of
Okay.
fern.
So if I see it, I can eat it.
Yeah, don't eat other kinds of ferns though. So, do take a look online at some photographs to make sure. Oh, I also wanted to share, there is an amazing exhibition at the New York State Museum in Albany right now. It's the work of Mary Banning, who was a Victorian amateur mycologist. And she did some of the best drawings and descriptions of mushrooms in her day, all the while taking care of her elderly mother and her sickly sister. And she produced an amazing collection of illustrations and descriptions. And right now they're on exhibit at the museum there. And it's finally going to be published as a book, as she hoped it would be in her lifetime, but it never was. Beautiful exhibition. It's a great museum up there, and well worth the trip.
Thanks. Can I ask you a mushroom question?
Sure.
I mean, it's not this season, but it's the chicken of the woods.
Well, so common names get a little tricky.
Okay.
Around here, there are chicken mushrooms and there are hen of the woods, and they're two different mushrooms. Are you talking about the orange one or the brown one?
I'm talking about the orange one that grows on the trees.
Okay, so that's what is often called a chicken mushroom. It is Polyporus sulphurus is the botanical name. And what is your question about it?
Well, my friends seem to like them, right? They come because we have a bunch. We get a lot of them. We also get the chanterelles. We don't get a lot of those, but we get some, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
But I can't seem to make the texture to my liking. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So is there like a certain time where it's better, or should I be eating just one part of it, or like what do we do about the texture?
Yeah, as they get older, they get dry and woody. And so what you want to do is you want to get them really young, because as they get older and as they thin out,
yeah,
they're going to be drier and woodier.
All right, so don't wait till they get big. Just start taking them when they're
Get
little.
them when they're really, really young. And then also the edges are generally more tender if they're a little older.
Thank you.
But I found there's no substitute for getting them really young and juicy.
Okay.
I wonder, have you heard anything about eating Japanese knotweed when it first comes up and it's still red?
I've heard a lot about that, and I tried it myself once, and I thought it was disgusting. It was kind of slimy and dirty tasting, but other people I've talked to really like it. So, I might have to give it another try, but I don't feel myself as highly motivated after my first experience.
I've had it. It's kind of lemony. It's like asparagus.
Yeah, that's what people say, and
Yeah,
that was
maybe you have to catch it when it's like fresh out of the ground, like right about now.
I think I'm gonna have to try it again.
Right.
Well, is there another question? Well, if there are no more questions, I know Maria has to get to yet another meeting. And I want to thank Maria for once again a great talk, and maybe we'll get her back in time to talk about those summer mushrooms and plants.
I would love to. Nice to see everybody. Thank you for coming.
This was great, Maria. Thank you so much.
I really want to see you out there. It's so much fun.
Thank you.
Maybe we can have a forage picnic one day.